My name is Angela. I'm 42 years old, and for almost half of my life, I was a wife. I believed in love, in loyalty, in building something together. I thought my marriage was strong, that we were just going through a rough patch like everyone does. But I was wrong. The truth is, sometimes love doesn't die suddenly. It just disappears little by little in the quiet moments, in the things we stop saying, in the way we stop looking at each other. It started after our second child was born. My husband, Richard, became distant. Not angry, not cruel, just absent. He worked long hours, came home tired, and barely looked at me. I tried to talk, to ask him what was wrong. He always said the same thing. I'm fine, just busy. So I stopped asking. I stopped hoping. I began to feel like a shadow in my own house. We still lived under the same roof. We still shared the same bed. But we no longer shared a life. Some nights I would cry in the shower, letting the water hide my tears. Other nights I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he even noticed I was there. I missed being seen. I missed being touched. Not just physically but emotionally. I missed having someone ask me how my day was. Someone who listened. Someone who cared. If you want to improve your English by listening to real, emotional stories that feel true to life, subscribe to English Storytime and like this video. This is how you learn English. Naturally, word by word, heart by heart. And that's when I met someone else. He wasn't someone I looked for. He was just there. A man from the cafe where I stopped on my way to work. He smiled. He noticed me. And for the first time in years I felt like I existed again. His name was Mark. He worked mornings at a small cafe just 2 blocks from my office. At first I didn't notice him. I was always in a rush, grabbing coffee on the way to work, barely looking up. But one morning I forgot my wallet. I was embarrassed and ready to leave, but he smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's on the house." I thanked him and promised I'd pay the next day. He laughed and said, "It's just coffee, but your smile is enough." I don't remember the last time someone said something kind to me without expecting anything in return. The next day I brought cash and paid for the coffee. He smiled again and asked, "Rough week?" I nodded, surprised that someone noticed. We talked for maybe 2 minutes. Just small talk. But it felt warm. Felt real. Day after day, I started stopping by not just for the coffee, but for the conversation. It wasn't flirty, not yet. It was friendly. Human. He remembered how I liked my drink. He asked how my day was. He made me feel seen. At home, Richard hadn't changed. We talked even less. Dinner was quiet. Our children noticed, I'm sure, but they didn't ask. Maybe they were used to it. Maybe they thought that's just what marriage looked like after 20 years. But I couldn't accept that. I still wanted connection. I still needed to feel alive. One morning, Mark asked me what I liked to do outside of work. Pause. I couldn't answer. I didn't know. I had spent so many years being a wife, a mother, an invisible part of the background, that I had forgotten what I enjoyed. That question stayed with me all day. Shook something inside me. Not because of Mark, but because I realized how far I had drifted from myself. I didn't love Mark. Not then. But I loved how I felt around him. And that, I now know, was the beginning of everything. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic moment, no storm, no explosion. Just slow, silent steps in the wrong direction. At first I told myself it was nothing. Coffee. Smile. Kind conversation. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't touching him. I wasn't lying. I was just escaping. 10 minutes a day where I felt seen, heard, and appreciated. 10 minutes where I wasn't invisible. But then came the first time I didn't go home after work. Mark had invited me to see a small art gallery nearby. Nothing serious, he said. Just something different after a long day. I hesitated. I should have said no. I knew that. But I said yes. We walked through the gallery in silence. He didn't touch me. He didn't try anything. But I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't in years. And that terrified me. That night I came home late. Richard didn't even ask where I had been. He was in the living room watching TV, same as always. I stood there for a moment, waiting for him to look up. He didn't. I could have told him everything right then. I could have confessed. But instead I went to bed. And cried. The guilt started quietly. A whisper in the back of my mind. You're doing something wrong. But I pushed it down. I told myself. I haven't done anything physical. I told myself. I deserve to feel alive. But deep down I knew. It wasn't about Mark. It was about me. About the parts of me I had buried for years. About the pieces of myself I was trying to bring back to life. Mark never asked about my marriage. He never pushed. He just listened. And slowly, I started telling him things I had never said out loud. Things about my childhood. About how I felt as a mother. About the loneliness I carried like a secret. And that's when I realized something that scared me. I was falling in love. And it wasn't with my husband. It was a rainy Friday evening. The streets were almost empty, the sky gray and low. I had stayed at the cafe longer than usual, talking to Mark. The air outside was cold, but I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to walk into that silent house, past a husband who barely noticed my presence. Mark offered to walk me to my car. We stood outside under a small awning watching the rain fall. He looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You don't deserve to feel so alone." I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was him. But when his lips touched mine, it didn't feel like a decision. It felt like something that had been waiting to happen for a long time. The kiss was soft, hesitant. And when it ended, I stepped back in silence. My heart was racing. My chest was tight. I had just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I drove home in the rain, shaking. My hands on the wheel felt foreign. My thoughts were loud and fast. I kept repeating, "What have I done? What have I done?" And yet, part of me wasn't surprised. Part of me had known it was coming. That night, I sat in the kitchen for over an hour, staring at the wall. Richard passed by, said good night, and went upstairs. He didn't notice anything different. He didn't see me. The guilt didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly over the next few days. In the way I avoided looking at myself in the mirror. In the way I flinched when Richard kissed me on the cheek out of habit. In the silence between Mark and me the next time I walked into the cafe. He looked at me and said nothing. I said nothing back. But everything had changed. And I had changed too. I wasn't just a lonely wife anymore. I was now a woman with a secret. And secrets, I learned, don't stay quiet forever. Mark didn't kiss me again. Not the next day. Not the day after. He went back to being kind, professional, distant. But something between us had changed. I felt it in the way he avoided my eyes. In the way he smiled with less warmth. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe he was afraid. Or maybe, just like me, he didn't know what to do next. At home, I started to feel like a stranger. I went through the motions. Cooked dinner, did laundry, asked the kids about school. But inside, I was somewhere else. My body was present, but my mind was drifting, back to that rainy night, back to a moment I both hated and longed to repeat. Richard remained the same. Still quiet. Still distracted. Still untouched by anything I said or did. One evening, he looked at me across the dinner table and asked, Are you okay? It was such a simple question. And yet I couldn't answer. Because how could I tell him the truth? How could I say, no, I'm not okay. I kissed another man. Feel guilty. Feel empty. And I don't know how to come back from it. So instead I just nodded. I'm fine. He believed me. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he just wanted to. The silence between us grew thicker. It wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical. We barely touched. We barely spoke. We were two people sharing a space but not a life. I started sleeping on the edge of the bed. He stopped saying goodnight. I wondered how we had gotten there. How love had become something we tiptoed around, afraid to wake it like a sleeping ghost. At the cafe, I told Mark I couldn't keep coming anymore. He nodded. He didn't ask why. He didn't try to stop me. He just said, take care of yourself. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like crying in front of him. But I didn't. I smiled and walked away. I had chosen to break something. And now I had to live inside what was left. It's been almost a year since that night in the rain. Sometimes it feels like it happened to someone else. Like I watched it all from outside my body. But most days I remember every detail. The way the rain sounded. The way Mark looked at me. The way I felt like I had done something that could never be undone. Richard never found out. Or maybe he did in his own way. People sense things even if they don't speak them. We never had a big fight. No screaming. No broken plates. Just more silence. More space between us. The kind of space that swallows everything slowly. One morning, he told me he had accepted a job offer in another city. It's a good opportunity, he said. We could use the change. He nodded. But deep down I knew. He wasn't running towards something. He was running away. From me. From us. From a marriage that had already collapsed in silence long before a kiss ever happened. We didn't divorce. Not officially. He moved. Stayed. The kids visit him on weekends. We still talk now and then. But it's different. We're different. I never saw Mark again. I stopped going to the cafe. I deleted his number. Not out of anger, but because I knew I had used him as a mirror for everything I was missing. And that wasn't fair to him or to me. He reminded me I was still a woman, still alive. But healing couldn't come from someone else's eyes. It had to come from my own. Now I'm learning to be alone. Not lonely, but truly alone. Take walks. I read books. I started painting again. I write in a notebook every night, even if it's just a sentence. I'm slowly becoming someone I recognize. Not a perfect wife. Not a secret lover. Just Angela. Do I regret what happened? Not because I'm a bad person, but because I broke something that didn't deserve to be broken. I hurt someone who, even in his absence, was still my husband. But I also regret not speaking up sooner. Not demanding love when I still believed in it. Not fighting for my voice before I lost it in silence. If you've ever made a mistake that changed everything, know this. You are not your worst decision. You are the story you choose to write after it. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to English Storytime for more emotional stories that help you learn English through real life.